Before you spend $1 on Texas land, there's a few steps I want to go over with you in segment 2 out of 3 on buying Texas land in 2026. Okay, I'm going to go over today due diligence and utilities. This is going to help you save, in some cases, $15,000 to $20,000 of missing out on things that can cost you later on after you make a purchase. So here's the deal. I have folks come to me and they say, I want to buy land. Maybe they've never owned land before, or maybe the land they own, they inherited it, or it was a pretty simple process. Well, then when they go to upgrade or downgrade or whatever, and they buy land and they're like, oh, I didn't know about all these things. And I'm like, okay, well, this is why it's important that we talk about due diligence and utilities. So next week, we're going to be jumping into ag exemptions. And we're also going to be talking about title and surveys. But let's dig in this week on our content. Due diligence is super important. This is where buyers can really miss on very expensive things. Due diligence just basically means do your homework ahead of time. Build in your feasibility period. This is AKA option period. This allows you to do your homework on your property that you're trying to purchase. You have a larger window to go and get your paperwork and all of your ducks in a row. By paperwork, I mean you want it in writing, which you have access to, surveys, easements, water information, you and all that information in writing. So it's important we build this in and we do this homework during our feasibility study. Sometimes you can do it ahead of time as well, which is really helpful. But if you can't, you can do it during the feasibility study. So first and foremost, we start off with the flood map. You want to make sure to check the floodplains in the area. Does your property have a sliver of floodplain? Does it have a lot of floodplain? You're going to need to be prepared for if you have to have flood insurance. Even if you have a sliver, there's a chance you're going to have flood insurance. So making sure that you understand how much of your property has floodplain and what's that going to cost you. You can also take a look at, is it a 100-year floodplain, 500-year floodplain? You should be able to get some more information from the listing agent as well. That can also help you in your search. Now, let's take a look at groundwater and wells. I'm going to touch on this quickly because we're going to talk more about water and water lines here in just a second. But if you don't have access to a water line, you're going to have to drill for a well. Now, you want to make sure that you are, 1, budgeting for this, and 2, you're prepared for whether or not you can get a well at all. Not every area has groundwater that's accessible. So you're going to have to tap into getting a test done in order to confirm, can I drill a well here? Is it going to be successful? I've seen where people have made purchases of land and they couldn't get water on it. And then they also couldn't get a well drilled. That's a problem. Make sure you do your due diligence ahead of time. So wells typically run about $25 a foot when they're drilled, but you also have costs like the pump, the trenching, power that has to get ran to it. Make sure you have your ducks in a row there. Now let's talk about the waste side of things. When you have a structure, you need to have a septic of some kind. So when you ask for a bid on septic, they're going to come out and they're going to conduct some type of soil test. The soil quality or the soil type will dictate what type of septic can be installed. Conventional, aerobic, those types of things. Then your cost is going to be based on the type of system that's installed. This runs about $8,000 to $12,000 depending on which type of system it is. Then when we take a look at utilities, let's dig into power first. You want to confirm which company services your area, and then you want to get it in writing in terms of how long is it going to take them to get out there? How many poles do they think that your property is going to need? Do they cover the first 2? Do you pay out of pocket for more than that? Do they cover more? Do they cover less? Are they going to have to trench? Are they going to have to go underground to run power to your house? These are all things that we need to check into. Now, if it has a power meter on site, that's great. If it has a water meter on site, that's great. But make sure that you're also checking into the access points to get to the existing meters, because when you go to build, you're going to have to stretch and get that power or that water to your property. If you have a septic on site already, you may need to do a septic test to confirm that it is of working quality. So that's really important as well. Now, if you have a water line, you want to make sure you check with the local water company. Can you get a water meter if there's not one on site? How much is that going to cost? Are they going to have to drill or bore under a road? Okay, these are all questions that are extremely important that each can have a dollar amount added to it. So now let's move on to easements and access points. Your survey should be able to tell you if there are easements or access points that are on the property or near the property. The thing is we want to make sure if there's an easement that's on the property, that means someone else has access to something. Sometimes there's an overhead power line. Maybe a utility company has a gas line under the dirt. So there might be an easement to where they can access it to fix it. Your access points, can you ensure that you're going to have access to that access point, that driveway or that entrance? Okay. These are all things that are really important. Last, I want to wrap up with zoning and deed restrictions. So usually when you're in city limits, the city is who dictates what can be built, how it can be built, all those things. If you're in what I call the gray area or ETJ, which is your extraterrestrial zone, if you will, that's in between city and county. They can also dictate some of the zoning that goes on there. Outside of that, you've got county, which is dictated property by property when it comes to deed restrictions. Now, there are some requirements in terms of different counties have a couple of different things that you need to check into. But for the most part, there are less restrictions in the county versus in the city. Now, when it comes to each property, there might be deed restrictions in place that were put there by a previous owner. And you're going to have to check into, okay, what are the restrictions? Does that tell me what I can or can't build out here? This is important in terms of putting a future home or fencing. Maybe they are restricting you on what type of structure or where you can put the structure. Maybe there are no restrictions, but these are things that you want to ask and check into. As I wrap up, you want to make sure that you're just creating your budget. If you're getting lending for a construction project, you're going to need this budget and you're going to need to present it to your lender. They're going to want to know all the things, especially if it doesn't have these on site already. Or if you're planning to add them and it's a part of financing or maybe a construction loan as well. So make sure that you're getting all of this included and you're not getting surprised by like forgetting to add in the cost for a driveway. That's about $15,000 right there. Make sure that you're thinking through each of these pieces. And that wraps up for segment 2 on how to buy land in Texas in 2026. Next week, we're going to dig into ag exemptions and then closing and title timeline. So check back with me for segment 3 on how to buy land in Texas in 2026. You can also download my free land buying checklist within the description. It includes feasibility timeline information, some vendor contact lists, and cost ranges that you can work with. You can also text me or call me at 512-269-7907 for 5 current acreage deals within 15 minutes of Taylor.